Hi everyone, here we're going to go over a guide for how to solve word problems. So this is not a lesson on any kind of physics principle. This is just about the mechanics of how to solve any kind of word problem that you'll encounter in this class. So typically on an exam, I give you formula sheets, but now I'm also going to include what I call a variable guide. And what the variable guide shows you is you're going to have a list of variable names, variable symbols, and units. And the basic procedure is that what you'll do is you're going to start off by first finding the units in the word problems. And then next you'll find the variables. And then once you find the variables, then you'll be able to use that to find the correct formula. So this is really what this is all about. So let's look at two examples. Let's begin with the first example. So step one is to just scan the word problem for numbers and units. So the number and unit that I see here is a 685N. So that's step one. Step two, once you found the number in units, then go back into the variables guide and find the corresponding symbol. So going back to this list here, here I have an N, so I'll look here for an N. So there it is right there. So I'm gonna replace this. I'm gonna write this in terms of F. So then this is actually equal to 685 N, or newtons. So we were also given another number, but here it was everything was given. So we were given G is equal to 9.8 meters per second squared. So that's step two. Step three is to now read the problem carefully to find what they're asking for and to get any other kind of extra details. So reading the problem in more detail, what you find is that they're asking for what is the mass. So this is what we're trying to find. So we're trying to find the mass. And other than that, let's see what else that we can find. So it says gravitational force next to the 685. So then here, instead of just writing this as F, I'm going to rewrite this as the gravitational force is equal to 685 N. And so the 9.81, that is again gravity. Now, step four is we're going to find the variable or the symbol that corresponds to this word by going back to the variable guide. So here, mass is here, so then we're going to rewrite this as M. So then we're trying to find M. And now on to step five. So now we have now we can collect all the information. We're trying to find M. We have FG, which is 6.85 N, and we also have G is equal to 9.8 meters per second squared. So now that you have that, go back to now you can go to the formula sheet and put a dot over everything, or try to find the equation. But I'll do it a way that might be helpful. Is I'm going to use dots. So everywhere I see an M, I'll put a dot. So there's an M here, there's an M here, there's an M there. And everywhere I see an FG, I'll put a dot. So there's an FG here, there's an FG here, there's an FG here. And everywhere I see a G, I'll put a dot. So there's a G there, there's a G here, and G there. So there's only one equation that has all the terms with a dot, and that's this one. So then this is going to be the equation that I'm going to pick. So step 6, we found the equation FG is equal to m times g. And this is the purpose of today's exercise. It was just to find, to follow the procedures in order to find the right equation. Afterwards, this is just algebra. We just have to plug in. So then this is going to be 685 equals m times 9.81. And solving for that, you should get that m is equal to 69.9. But the purpose of this exercise was not about doing this algebra part. It was about all the steps that you follow in order to find the right equation. Because in general on a test, you might be there might be a lot for you to pick from, so you might get lost as to what equation to choose. So let's do one more example. So step 1 is to scan the word problem for numbers in units. So there's one here. So that one is 7 ms, and there's another one here. So that is 0.05 s. So that's step 1. Step 2, go back to the variables guide and find the corresponding symbols. So for ms, the corresponding symbol is a V. So then we'll write this as V is equal to 7 meters per second. And for S, the corresponding symbol is a T. So then we'll write T is equal to 0.05 S. So that's step 2. Step 3 is to now read the problem carefully, find what they're looking for, and any other kind of extra details. So reading for what they're looking for, it says what is the velocity? So we're trying to find the velocity. And now let's see what else what other kind of information we can have here. So it says what is the velocity, but it also says after. So we want the velocity after. And velocity after means what is the velocity final? That's what we want. So I'll just rewrite like that. So what we actually want is the velocity final. And next it says it's thrown up into the air. So thrown means that you're in midair. And because of that, you're being acted upon by gravity. And so we're going to use G is equal to 9.81 meters per second squared. And the next thing is, let's see here. Next to this one here, it says, well, initially at 7. So initially at 7 means that the initial velocity is equal to 7 meters per second. And now, let's go on to the next step. So now, the next step is to go back to the variables list or guide and find the symbol that corresponds to this one here. So for velocity. So for velocity, I'll use V. So actually then what we want to find is V final. And now we can put everything together. So step 5, we're trying to find the final velocity. We have the initial velocity is 7 meters per second. We have the time is 0.05 seconds. And we have G is equal to 9.81 meters per second squared. So now let's go ahead and find the equation that corresponds to this one. So now on to step 6. So we're going to refer to the equation. We're going to refer to the word problems. We're going to refer to the formula sheet and to find the corresponding equation. So So what I'll do is everywhere I see each of these variables, I'll put a dot. So wherever I see a v final, I'll put a dot. So v final here, and there's a v final here, and everywhere I see a v initial, I'll put a dot. So v initial here, v initial there, and everywhere I see a t, I'll put a dot. But in general, if you're only given one t, then that means that you can always set the initial time is equal to 0. And so everywhere I see a t, I'll put a dot. So we'll put a dot here, 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 and here. And everywhere I see a g, I'll put a dot. So here, 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 and here. And again, there's only one equation that has all the terms with a dot, and that's this one. So that's the formula that I will use. So v final minus v initial is equal to negative gt. And this is, again, the purpose of this exercise. It's not for you to do the actual physics. It's just to identify the right equation from the list for any given word problems. So these are the steps that you should always follow, whether it's for the homework assignment or for the test or the test preps. So, but let's just go ahead and finish this off. So step 7 is just a plug in. So it's going to be v final minus v initial, which is 7 is equal to negative 9.81 multiplied by 0.05. And that will give you a value of 2.1 meters per second. So whether you're working on homework questions or on the test, always try to use this guide, where first what you do is to find the variables. Once you find the variables, always find first the units, and once you find the units, then you find the corresponding variables, and then once you find the variables, then you find the corresponding equation.